Good afternoon, 49ers fans. We are the All 49ers writers, Grant Cohn, Jack Hammer. The narrative is changing around Trey Lance. A couple months ago, they were saying, man, this guy might sit for 2 years. Now, according to Mike Garoppolo and NFL Network, they're saying, well, he's probably going to take over the job at some point this season, and he could do it in training camp if he wows them. So I think it's time to recalibrate the expectations for this guy, particularly knowing what a rookie mobile quarterback has done under this coach in the past. I know it seems like ancient history to some, but it was only 10 years ago that Robert Griffin III was the rookie of the year under Kyle Shanahan. So where do you think this is heading, and what do you think it's reasonable to expect from Trey Lance this year?
I definitely think that it's trending in the direction that Lance is going to take over the quarterback position sooner than later. You know, as you mentioned, the conversation right after the draft was that Lance wasn't even going to compete for the starting job, and now it's gotten to the point where Kyle Shanahan's basically come out and said it's up to Trey Lance whether or not he's competing for the job. If he comes out and plays like he's supposed to play, or we expect him to, I think he'll take it. So I think we can definitely. I think we're going to see Trey Lance sooner than later, and I think he can probably do better than what you saw from RG3 in Washington back in 2012. If you want to get right into the numbers there, I think RG3 was at 3,200 yards passing,
about 800 yards rushing.
Yeah, about 4,000 total yards.
Yep, 20 passing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns. I don't know how I know this off the top of my head. 5 picks. About 102 rating, and 9 wins and 15 starts. Tore his ACL in the playoffs. Never was the same.
Yeah, I think the numbers for would be a little bit higher for Trey Lance. I think he's got a little bit better supporting cast around him than what RG3 had in terms of the receiving crew. If they all stay healthy, he's got a better tight end, and I think he has. I think the receivers have the ability. Pierre Garçon at that point was kind of at the top of his game, right? He had just left Indianapolis, so he was still really good. But I think you add in Deebo Samuel and Kyle Juszczyk and Brandon Ayuk, and I think that whole group ends up being better than than Washington had at that point. So I would say he's probably going to be around 4,500 total yards of offense when you throw in, if his passing yards are probably going to be a little bit higher. I would expect him to have more than 200 yards a game. I would expect him to be around 215, 220.
Yeah.
Right. And his rushing stats will probably be a little bit lower. But I still think he's going to be above what RG3 had there. And I think when you watch Trey Lance in college, he doesn't have a lot of interceptions, and I don't think you'll see a lot either with the way that Shanahan would probably utilize him.
That was the one thing I wanted to mention was the interceptions was impressive from Robert Griffin. The fact that he only threw 5 as a rookie. I think you could see something similar from Trey Lance, and that's all the more reason to play him. I know Jimmy Garoppolo has the results he has, but he really is careless with the ball. And it's a run-first team. So I think you could definitely see Trey Lance start 16 games, win 10, 11, 12, put up 4,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, less than 10 turnovers, and win the Rookie of the Year. I think that's not that unrealistic.
Not at all. When you look at what they did with Griffin in 2012 at the start of that year, it was all stuff that Trey Lance could walk in and do right now. Screens to both sides of the field. Every once in a while, you're throwing the ball down the field, running the option every once in a while, and then handing the ball off like crazy as well. I definitely think that he could come out right at the gate week 1 and play at a high level.
One difference between these two quarterbacks, people say, well, RG3 was more experienced. He won a Heisman. He had more. True. Trey Lance is more gifted, though. This team is better. And also, RG3 had never played under center. He was coming from a spread system, and they had to implement pretty much a pistol offense to get him functional. Trey Lance is going to be doing stuff like that, too, because you want a mobile quarterback running the read option, but he can also do all the stuff under center. I actually think he's probably more advanced than RG3 was in 2012.
I think so. I think you hit it right on the head right there, but the nail on the head as far as his ability to do the play action game out from underneath center and all that kind of stuff. And I think mentally he might be ahead of it in terms of understanding the offense and the checks, and he's probably everything that we're hearing sounds like he's way ahead of schedule from where they were expecting to be at this point.
So start to put Trey Lance on the Rookie of the Year radar. If you are a gambling man, check out the odds, because I bet it might be. I don't even know, but could be low now. While the perception still exists that he's going to be the backup. I don't know why I'm telling people to gamble. I'm like the devil right now. Don't gamble. All right, let's go to the other Trey. Trey Sermon.
Uh-huh.
He's expected to be in a running back committee. He could end up the season with 100 carries. Or, depending on what Raheem Mostert does, like we talk a lot about how unreliable Jimmy Garoppolo is. Well, Raheem Mostert's kind of the same. Sorry, Raheem, I love you, but let's be fair. He missed 8 games last year too. So if he goes down, he got hurt in OTAs. If he's not around, what could Trey Sermon do? And I guess the context is, again, going back to the 2012 Washington team, RG3 won the Rookie of the Year, but the other rookie, the running back, Alfred Morris, ran for 1,600 yards. He was pretty good too. Do you think Trey Sermon could have a similar impact? I don't know if he'll get 335 carries like Alfred Morris got, but do you think he could sort of take over this backfield? Is that a realistic expectation?
I don't think that he's going to have the impact like Alfred Morris did. I think that's part of one of the things that Shanahan's kind of evolved from. He understood that he really kind of ran him into the ground early in the year because he didn't really have a second or third option. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why you see you saw them go out at but they didn't really use him, right? I think they didn't. So I'm thinking that's why we put Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon,
Wayne Gallman.
We always forget about Wayne Gallman. We always forget about him, right? He's kind of the unknown, the forgotten guy in the backfield. You start putting all 4 of those guys in there, and I think you could see those same amount of rushing attempts, but it's going to be spread out amongst those guys.
That's true.
But I do see Trey Sermon as being of the 2 rookies. He's the guy that's the finisher. I don't know enough about Wayne Gallman to really be able to put him in there. I think that's why we always forget about him. But that's always been my thought of Trey Sermon is he's going to be the guy who he's not going to get a lot of carries unless he gets into a flow.
True.
And if you see him starting to pound it, then that's when he'll stay in the game, because that's kind of what happened with him at Ohio State.
Here's what you need to know about Wayne Gallman. He's better than Tevin Coleman.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah, I think. Mm-hmm.
So right there, that's a good spot. That's a good guy to have. And then, so I think that's important to remember. He's not going to be in a position where Sermon needs to run 335 times, which is what Morris did that year. So I think it's possible that he could run 150, maybe 200 if other people get hurt. But what the Niners most likely will have is Trey Lance running for 600-700 yards, Trey Sermon running for 600-700 yards, Raheem Mostert running for 600-700 yards, and Wayne Gallman running for 600-700. It could have 4 guys over right around 700 and get close to 3,000 as a team.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. That's something kind of goes back to what you and I talked about on draft night after they took Sermon. I think either day 2 or day 3 of the draft, when we're talking about kind of the way that they it seems like they built this team to be a little bit more power, a little bit more run heavy, which makes sense if you're going to be utilizing a rookie quarterback, that you're going to want to take the pressure off him as much as possible. So I think you're right. I think you're going to see all 4 of those guys play a heavy role in the offense this year.
Yeah, and I think that Trey Lance's presence will make Trey Sermon better. Just like what happens in Baltimore. They got J.K. Dobbins. It's interesting. J.K. Dobbins, Trey Sermon, same school, same system. It's kind of going to the same system now in the NFL. Like, really guys who are used to being in the pistol and the shotgun and creating their own rushing lanes, making guys miss, running between the tackles. Sermon's really good at that. Raheem Mostert is much better in an I formation with the quarterback under center, and he'll still be able to do that with Trey Lance, but I think Lance and Sermon could be an even better combination than Fields and Sermon was at Ohio State.
Yeah, and you saw Sermon do that at Oklahoma too with Kyler Murray. Being able to run out of the shotgun and run all that same stuff that you see him with the 49ers. So he did it there too, and he really at times carried that helped the we talked a little bit during the how Sermon kind of carried the Ohio State team into the championship game. There were times in 2018 when he was still at Oklahoma that he carried Kyler Murray when Kyler Murray was struggling, like the Texas Tech game, for example, where Murray kept throwing interceptions and he just had to dominate the game for Oklahoma to win.
Yes, that's very interesting to think that the 49ers drafted Kyler Murray's running back. And, Kyler Murray now has James Conner. I've seen James Conner. Well, that's a tough one. I've seen James Conner play a lot, and I like Trey Sermon better, just in terms of talent. I've seen Chris Carson play a lot. Fish loves Chris Carson. I feel like Chris Carson's a lot like Ezekiel Elliott. He's taken so many hits the last few years that he's just slow at this point. I'm not worried of Chris Carson. And then Cam Akers looks good. But, Cam Akers is in the backfield with a statue, and Trey Sermon's in the backfield with Trey Lance. It's possible that Trey Sermon could become the most, prolific running back in this backfield in the next couple of years. He could go that direction.
Yeah, with what we saw, what we know of the kind of the read game and all that kind of stuff, and I could easily see Trey Lance building and making it easier for Sermon or even Mitchell or any of these guys that are lined up next to him out of the pistol or out of the shotgun with the running because of the attention he's going to draw.
I do want to say I think there's going to be some type of a role for Elijah Mitchell in this team. He plays a lot with Lance, and Lance checks down to him a lot. And I've seen them throw deep to Mitchell. They've been constantly trying to install these like wheel routes from the running backs, not just to Kyle Juszczyk. I think it's something they wanted to do with Jerick McKinnon, and he couldn't run it. Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't throw it. They've attempted it a few times, but I think it's something that Lance and Mitchell will be doing in the next few years. So look for that, the wheel route from the backfield. Yeah,
it makes sense considering what he's done in college.
Absolutely. Luis says it's in the best interest of Shanahan to guide Lance. If Kyle doesn't bring his teacher side with him, who can Trey rely on then? Good call. I agree. This is a very big project for Kyle. When I watched Jim Harbaugh do this with Colin Kaepernick, Harbaugh was very hands-on and was the main teacher. It wasn't Jeep Christ. It was Harbaugh. But to Kyle Shanahan's credit, he's done this with Robert Griffin III, and who knows what would have happened to Robert Griffin if his knee hadn't gotten totally mangled. I can't blame that on Kyle.
No, you can't. The injury when he injured his knee, it was actually in the regular season against Baltimore when he first injured it. It was on a scramble. It wasn't even on a designed run. So you can't blame that on Kyle Shanahan because the quarterback took off on a scramble. So it wasn't his responsibility.
Then the knee gave out like on a non-contact thing in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, the slippery, the turf was messed up, and he kind of hit the ground and hit the back foot, and it just slipped out. Yeah, so I don't think you can blame Shanahan at all in that. I think Shanahan's going to bring him along. Like as you just mentioned, he's already done this once with a quarterback similar to Trey Lance. I think he knows what he wants out of it. He's been talking about it for years, and he's finally got a guy that he feels is going to allow him to kind of open up all kinds of different things that he hasn't shown a lot of with the 49ers.
And I always kind of I always had the feeling that the Niners were intrigued with Colin Kaepernick when they drafted him, but didn't exactly know how they were going to use him. And I think the plan was to make like him a multi-year project that they could turn him into a pro-style quarterback. And then they saw what Kyle Shanahan did with RG3 in 2012, and they were like, oh, we can do that too. I mean, they always said that they've been working with the guy at Reno, and this was the plan all along. But Kyle did it first, for the record. And it seems like the Niners quickly realized they could do it maybe even better, and they put their own spin on it. But Kyle was there first.
Well, both those happened in 2012. Though,
that's right. And Kyle did it week 1, and the Niners got to it by week 10. So
gotcha. That's
right. Got there. They got there quick. They didn't waste much time because really in 2012, if you were running that read option, you had a top 5 offense in the league, right?
Yeah. Do you remember if Kaepernick played week 1 against Green Bay?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I was there. I think it was one snap at the end of the half, a quarterback draw, and he gained like 20 yards.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, man, he's in great shape. Like, he got a lot bigger this year. Remember how big Kaepernick used to be? People forget. He doesn't look the same anymore. He was huge.
He was really big. I remember after they drafted because they drafted Kaepernick in 11 and they drafted James in 12, correct?
Yes.
LaMichael James?
Yes.
I remember after they drafted LaMichael James, I remember either tweeting at you or on the blogs basically saying that look for them. I think you're going to see them start to run some read option with this.
Exactly.
Because they're coming out of the same kind of backfield.
Right, and I'm sure that was the thought process behind drafting LaMichael James. I mean, look at how prolific he was in a similar scheme to what they were trying to do. So, yeah, I guess the idea was there. Kyle made it work for it. I'm just trying to give him credit. He did it first. Yeah. He did it. The Niners were thinking about it, but Kyle did it.
No, he went all in on it.
He went all in.
Right from week one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you, Luis. All right, we got our next topic. Something I've been thinking about. We've been talking a lot about what the Niners have to do to put themselves in the best position to win a Super Bowl this year. And they do have a shot in the sense that I think the NFC is wide open. But you've pointed this out too. Them winning a Super Bowl this year, they'd have to do something no team has ever done one way or another, right? You either have to do it with the most expensive quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl or the youngest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. One of the two things. So they could do it. I mean, there's always time for first. But it seems to me it's pretty obvious that the best opportunity the Niners have to win a Super Bowl is next year. And that while they may have a good opportunity this year, they have a golden freaking opportunity next year. Let's just go through it real quick. Brady will be 45. Rodgers will be, I don't even know what like, he'll be 38 and maybe in the AFC, maybe retired. Russell Wilson, his cap number will be 37 million. Patrick Mahomes' cap number will be 35. And then you'll have Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson hitting their second contracts. Meanwhile, the Niners have here's their crew of guys on rookie deals. Starters: Lance, Sermon, Debo, Ayuk, potentially the two guards, Banks and Moore. But let's just say Banks and then Bosa, Kinlaw, Greenlaw. That's 8 guys. That's a good team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an excellent team. And then, I understand the only negative is the secondary, but even there, that's why they went out and got Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore. And, if those rookies are able to come along, it might not be that big of an issue in the secondary. So they've kind of built up some really good depth to sustain them through what's going to be a little bit of an exodus after this year because of the one-year contracts. Yeah,
so it'll be Trey Lance in his second year. Most likely he'll probably have some experience. He won't be the youngest quarterback of all time to do this. And there's precedent of guys going to the Super Bowl their second year. Russell Wilson won it the second year. And I think what's interesting is if you compare the Kyle Shanahan timeline to the Bill Walsh timeline, it's very similar. The main difference is Walsh won the Super Bowl. Kyle lost it. But the next year, Walsh had to lose. I wasn't alive, but I was checking it out. There was a weird year. There was a strike year, and he was 3-6, kind of like last year with the pandemic. And then they come back the next year, 10-6. They lose in the NFC Championship to Washington.
Yeah.
And then the next year they go 15-1. So if we're staying on the Bill Walsh timeline, next year 2022 would be the 1984 year, where everything clicks and you have a juggernaut. They could potentially have a juggernaut in 2022 if Lance is the real deal.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you when you look at the quarterback situation. You mentioned the Garoppolo. Garoppolo has two things going against him. He has as far as winning the Super Bowl, he has the fact that his cap hit so high. And the second one is the only guys that have ever lost in their first start and come back and actually won it are guys that are in the Hall of Fame. And there's no way anybody's going to think of Jimmy Garoppolo as a Hall of Famer.
All right, we're talking who? We're talking John Elway.
Yeah, there's John Elway. There was one other one as well.
There's like one other
Gracie.
guy, right?
I think Bob Gracie.
There you go.
Lost his first one and won the other one. And as far as Fran Tarkenton and Jim Kelly are basically the only other two guys that have done it where they've lost the first time and come back. The only other one is Craig Morton. He's the only one that's not in the Hall of Fame that's lost and then come back because he lost one with Dallas and then he lost one with Denver.
Of course, there's Brady who's lost 3, but he's also won 7. So.
Yeah. Well, he won his first one, so that's
true. I see what you're saying.
The first start.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, and I definitely think 2022 is the year. I think everything points to them being able to take it in 2022. There's just so much change. So much going to change between now and then. The Rams. It'll be interesting to see what happens down in LA too.
Right.
With their whole roster.
They're going to be good. Cardinals are still going to be good. The division's still going to be good. But knowing that the Niners should be at their peak in 2022, injuries notwithstanding. It'd be interesting if they do get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, if they decide the best use is to roll it over the cap space. I could see it. It would sort of supercharge that run in 2022, right?
Yeah, it would definitely help. I mean, I don't know if there's a whole lot of savings if you do it now and have it roll over. You have to look at all the numbers, but it doesn't matter. You're right. Either way, he's not going to be on the roster, and that's going to be somewhere between around $25 million extra on their cap when they get rid of him after this year, if that's what they do.
Salasafati says, some say that Shanahan broke Jim. He was a gunslinger who made off-schedule plays in 2017. Shanahan is all about his system. Should we worry with Lance?
I think the thing with Garoppolo is I think he's always kind of struggled with. He's just kind of struggling with playing his game. When he first came in, he didn't have any pressure. He had nothing to lose when he showed up in 2017. He was the team was terrible. There were no expectations. They'd only won one game, and he was just out there playing. He didn't know what he wasn't supposed to know, and so he's just out there playing. And then he gets the big contract in the offseason, and those 5 wins. Everybody's saying now the Niners are supposed to be a playoff team, and so he's got a ton of pressure on him, and it just went bad from week 1. And the team around him wasn't nearly as good as people thought anyway, which is all plays into that five game win streak at the end of the season.
Also, I don't think Shanahan's issue with Jimmy was that he made off-schedule plays. I think they like the off-schedule plays. That's a nice bonus. And it's not like Jimmy would abandon pockets to run around. Like, he did it when he had to, and he was pretty good at it. And when he started, I felt like in 2018 before he got hurt, the gunshot Jimmy thing was all about the turnovers. Kyle was not okay with Jimmy Garoppolo just throwing the ball to the other team here and there and playing like he was Brett Favre. He wanted him to actually not turn the ball over, which I thought was a fair request. And I think that's when we saw Jimmy kind of lose his confidence. And then what really hurt his confidence was the knee injury. I mean, more than anything. So that's what I would say with that one.
Right.
Like Lance, they're not going to – I don't think they're going to have to try to rein in the turnovers with Lance. Lance is actually more of a game manager than a gunslinger. I mean, he has a strong arm, but he's not just going to be reckless on the field. He won't, from what I've seen.
No, he's not. He's not that type of a player at all. He's the opposite. They're going to have to get him, I think, at times to take shots when he's not taking. I think that's where the issue is going to be between him and Shanahan is there's going to be shots that he's not going to take that he should at times.
And I don't think he's going to pass up open receivers so he can scramble around. I haven't seen him be that kind of quarterback. I think he's going to be the kind of guy like when the pocket breaks down, when there's a guy in his face, he can break a tackle. He can make a guy miss. He can extend the play as a last resort, but he doesn't seem like he doesn't seem like a run first quarterback from what I've seen.
No, he's not. He's definitely not a run first quarterback. He's a guy that's looking to throw, and it's the throw always the run always comes after you've seen him look, and then it's always 1, 2, 3, or 4 before he takes off. Yeah, so he's definitely not a hit the back foot takeoff kind of guy.
Yeah, agree. As opposed to maybe as Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson. At times. Right. Isaac Hartman says, this might be too far away, but if we roll over the cap, are there any big difference makers in free agency that we could use that cap on, besides Fred? Oh, I mean, you paid me $5. The least I could do is look it up. Hold on. 2012 NFL free agents. Well, let me just check out real quick who the top guys are. It's a fair question. Okay. All right. Hold on. Oh, now
2022 free agents.
Yep. All right, here we go. Von Miller, Brandon Scherf, Allen Robinson, Chandler Jones, Chris Godwin. Ooh, that's nice. Dante Fowler, Devontae Adams, Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Robinson, Taylor Moton, Stephon Gilmore, Teron Armstead, Calais Campbell, Jason Pierre-Paul, Taysom Hill. That's some good players out there.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some, definitely, from what it sounds like. I mean, Stephon Gilmore is the guy who we're talking about. We've talked about they should maybe try to trade for and give up stuff. Next year they can get him for nothing. He's going to be expensive because he's a free agent. But if you have that's the kind of signing that you can make. If you have a quarterback on a rookie deal, you can make a pick like that. That's definitely one that would be interesting.
Yeah. Good question. So there definitely are a bunch of people. Just Google 2012 NFL free agents and check out the top 20 guys. Though, I mean, it seems to me if the Niners start Trey Lance for half the season, all the season, and he's exciting, and they win, a lot of people are going to want to sign on this team next year, even though it's in Santa Clara and the taxes are high.
Yeah, if he can do it all year long, and I think you're right. I think they're going to have to obviously overpay a little bit because it's California, but yeah, they can make that work, because I think that's a different situation than 2018 where Garoppolo had won the 5 games, but if you really looked at that team after 17, you knew they weren't going to be necessarily a top level team in 2018. Their defense wasn't quite where it needed to be, right? They were still a year off at that point, and the smart free agents, I think, saw that, and that's part of why they weren't.
They went to the Rams. Remember, Aqib Talib said, "No, I want to go to the Rams."
Yep.
Right.
But yes, and I think if you look at them, though, going into 2022, if Lance goes out and plays really good all throughout the year, the team already is going to have a really solid base, and you're looking at just adding guys, just the icing on top of the team. That's when you get that big free agent, like the Deion Sanders in 19.
Yup.
Yeah, like a Deion Sanders in 1994 kind of deal, that kind of thing. That's when your team is right there and they know you just need to push them over the edge. So that's when you get those kind of guys.
Ever since I've been covering the team, 2011, the Niners have not been a free agent destination, right? And they know it. Like they'll go after guys at the end of free agency, guys who are injured, guys coming off bad years. They always do this kind of stuff. But the one way they can become a free agent destination is a guy like Lance, young quarterback.
Yeah. Young quarterback that's on a rookie deal that gives you the money to spend, where you can kind of splurge in areas that you can. Having a quarterback like Lance on a rookie deal allows you to make some irresponsible decisions financially.
Like Trent Williams, like Eric Armstead.
Like Trent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like those contracts aren't a problem anymore if they're like playing up to expectations and Trey Lance is the quarterback. Go ahead and pay Eric Armstead $20 million a year so he can set the edge. Fine, it's a hell of an edge. Did you see that edge? What an edge!
He set the heck out of that edge.
He set the heck out of that edge. All right. So we don't need to be so negative about Jimmy Garoppolo all the time. And it's fair to go back and remember why the contract made sense when they offered it, when he signed it. I was a big proponent of the Niners offering him a contract instead of just franchise tagging him. The way I looked at it at the time was they couldn't play that wait and see game that Kirk Cousins, Washington played with Kirk Cousins, because the Niners just traded. They were invested. They anteed up. They gave a 2nd-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. You can't now all of a sudden be like, well, we don't really know. You got to give him something, and what they gave him was something that is team friendly, although they haven't exercised the portion of it that is team friendly yet.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right, because you went out and you made that as soon as they made that trade to bring him in, knowing that he didn't have a contract, you pretty much knew what his number was going to be. You pretty much knew that he was going to make around, I think the franchise tag that year was about $23.2 million, just to give you a quick round number. And so you knew that his first year was going to be right around that range. And, if you go that franchise tag route, the only reason you're doing that is because you're turning it into a prove it type of a deal, because he's only played 5 games, so you don't know what he's going to turn out overall. Right. And by doing it the way they did it, where they gave him a 5-year deal, it allowed them to maneuver the cap hit around. That 2018 cap hit was $37 million, if you remember.
Yes.
But having year one cap hit at $37 million allowed them to drop it down to only 20 for 2019. And by having that lower cap hit number, they were able to bring in Dee Ford, Quan Alexander, all these guys that kind of turned the defense around and turned them into a Super Bowl team. And it's all about, the only problem with the Garoppolo deal is that he hasn't performed to the level of the deal.
The torn ACL. I mean, it's the same thing with RG3. He's just never been the same. Who knows what he would be like had he not torn his ACL, but he just has no confidence or movement skills anymore.
Yeah, but even if you go back and you watch him in 2017 when he was moving around, he doesn't move. He doesn't move around that well now, but he's still. Yeah. But it's pretty close. I mean, if you go back and watch him like against the Cardinals in Week 1 of 2020, he's moving around pretty much the same. He's never been a guy that you're really, as a defense, you're going to worry about taking off.
No, that's true. But I feel like, I guess, let me be precise here, because he's not a scrambler. But I felt like he was tougher. Like he would hold the ball longer and he would take shots in 2017. And now I feel like he's very much more in self-preservation mode when he's on the field. I almost feel like he's soft. I thought he was tough.
I think yeah, exactly. I think in 2017 goes back to he didn't know what he was doing, right? He's just out there playing ball and he's just out there having fun. He knows just enough to be dangerous.
True.
And so he's just out there winging it. And now you're at a point where even in 2019 he played fairly well. I mean, he had his moments, and that's the hard part with Jimmy Garoppolo is he's just maddening because he'll make really, really bad plays and just get super frustrated with them. But then all of a sudden you look up at the scoreboard at the end of the game, and it's 24-23 and there's, a minute left and they're driving out to kick a field goal to win the game.
It reminds me a lot of like Ben Simmons in the NBA. Very productive, very limited. The weaknesses get harped on. He becomes less and less confident, and all of a sudden you're this big problem because you're so highly paid. I don't know if that's a good metaphor, but something like that. I mean, he is a good player, and he puts up good numbers in a lot of ways, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, and the other thing, going back to the topic as far as why it made sense, and what the people that don't like the contract, what they'll say is that the 49ers should just give him a franchise tag because then in 2018 he hurt his egg, right? He hurt his knee. So you wouldn't have had to pay him as much. You wouldn't be under this big contract. Well, okay, let's play that out for a minute. 2018 he hurts himself, so you have him play under another prove it deal in 2019 for, let's say, $15 million, $5 million less than what he. Okay, well, what happened in 2019? He took you to the Super Bowl. So It's better. You're in a better position now because that contract was signed in 2018 than if you had run that out that way and that contract had been signed in 2019. Because right now, if that had happened, we'd be sitting and looking at year 2 of a 4 to 5 year deal and a cap hit of 25, 30 million, kind of like what the Rams got stuck with.
True.
Right?
True. One more thing that's just kind of amazing in retrospect. I think what didn't make sense and what you'll never see again is the Patriots just wasting his rookie deal. I mean, I know what are you going to do? They didn't know what was going to happen with Tom Brady, but to draft a quarterback in the top 2 rounds and to have him not play until the last 5 games of his rookie deal and then have to have a team decide what to do next is just the nightmare. Like, why do you want to be in that position? That's not what you want. You want the guy in the rookie deal, and then you want to send him out and let some other team pay him. But paying that guy based on 5 starts, I know you had to do it, but that's all the more reason that they should have just got Patrick Mahomes in retrospect. I mean, just waiting, having to pull that trigger at the trade deadline is, that's a leap of faith. Yeah. You don't know. Yeah, You've seen 2 starts, 1.5.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It was, really 1.5. And that's part of why he never really got his shot in New England, right? He had his chance. He was going to get 4 starts to open the season. That was his audition to take over the job. He lasted a game and a half.
He looked great. He just destroyed Arizona, came out and couldn't make it through a game against Miami.
Yep, and then the 49ers make the trade in 2017. Cool, looks great. 2018, right back to 20,
And that's the story of his career. He looks great. Oh, he's hurt. No, he looks great. Oh, he's hurt.
Yes.
Chris Royal says, off topic, but my daughter is watching with me and says, "Go Niners." Can you give her a shout out? Her name is Angelica. Thanks, guys. No. Sorry.
No shout outs allowed.
Shout out, Angelica. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying this. If I were a 5-year-old, my dad maybe watched this show, I might be like, yo, can I just watch Rugrats, please?
No, you can't.
Doug.
Angelica, this is way better. This is way better than
in Rugrats. Angelica was like the mean girl in Rugrats. So I hope. But she probably, there's no stigma on that name anymore. It wasn't when I was a kid, though, because of that girl. Okay. So we said that the Niners essentially did the right thing in 2017 after they traded for Jimmy, after they took the biggest leap of faith of all time. Sure. Then they had to give up the money. They did it. And now it's team friendly. And they can get out of it at any time. And that's a good thing as opposed to what the Rams did with Jared Goff, which is going to hurt them for years. Same thing with Philly and Carson Wentz. Niners don't have that problem. But there is a problem, or was a problem, with Jimmy Garoppolo's deal. What would you say it is?
Yeah, it was the fact that, by doing it the way they did, when they came in, and here's the deal: the Niners, knowing how the Niners work, this probably wouldn't have happened because they went to the Super Bowl in 2019, right? But if they had gone ahead and done the prove it deals in 2018 and 2019, then you look into 2020 and you got Tom Brady sitting there waiting to be picked up by somebody. If even though they had just been to the Super Bowl, that could have been an option for the 49ers, where it wasn't really because of that contract. Because in order to get Tom Brady, it would have been about $28 million in dead money to get rid of Garoppolo at that point. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem with that whole thing. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, would Jed York have said, with the way that Jed York operates, would he have said, you know what, I know Garoppolo just took us to the Super Bowl, but let's go ahead and let's roll with Tom Brady. Let's go ahead and just send him out. We didn't win. Is that something that Jed York would do, considering what he did with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch after losing the game with new contracts as well?
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the only for me, that's the only real problem with the deal. That's it eliminated the ability to really go out and get Tom Brady in 2020.
Yeah. Let's be real clear about the big picture of Kyle Shanahan's time with the 49ers. The mistake wasn't trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. The mistake was not drafting Patrick Mahomes. Once they decided that they were going to just punt on the quarterback position for a year and wait till 2018 for Kirk Cousins, that was the mistake. And it's debatable whether Kyle Shanahan will ever, that mistake could ultimately cost him his job, no matter how long down the line. If it doesn't work out with Trey Lance, you'll keep going back to the original sin. I call it the original sin of this regime. But it'll be interesting if, passing on Mahomes, doing the Jimmy Garoppolo experience, it all led to Trey Lance. Maybe this is what it was meant to be. Maybe this is the right guy for the 49ers. I think there's a reason that Kyle Shanahan didn't want Patrick Mahomes. He was wrong, but Patrick Mahomes was coming from an air raid offense. Andy Reid did a lot to cater to Mahomes and to change his offense to fit him. I don't know if Kyle even can do that at this point. I don't know if he's good enough to do that, but his offense works in his way, and Trey Lance is much more suited to run it than Mahomes is, just coming out of college. So maybe this is the right quarterback for Shanahan.
Yeah, no, and I like everything you're saying because you're right. I mean, I've gone back and forth on this and said that it was okay for them to pass up on Mahomes at the time they did because the team wasn't really built. But even at that, if you just go ahead and you take that quarterback in 2017, then in 2018, at least you've got a quarterback that you're starting to bring along in 2019 and 20. You're set and you're rolling right now, right?
Right. Sit him for a year, just like Harbaugh did with Kaepernick for the same reason, because he was coming from the pistol. Yes.
Yeah, and like Reid did with him in Kansas City. And then I like what you're saying too, as far as the fact that he was from an air raid offense, and Shanahan didn't see that see him as a good fit, possibly for their team, and that's kind of an issue when it comes to Kyle Shanahan not being able to see that fit with him. I think he could have run all the stuff that the 49ers run now. Yes. But he wasn't seeing it, and that's why he liked Trey Lance so much as he was watching the film, and Trey Lance is putting his hands under center. He's doing all kinds of stuff at the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And the play action game and all that kind of stuff. He's actually able to see a lot of his stuff taking place on the field, and saying, look what this guy is doing compared to what Jimmy's doing, and all these things all this fun I could have with this guy compared to what I've got right now.
I think I'm pretty good at getting inside the mind of the Shanahans when they scout quarterbacks. I did it with Beathard and I did it with Lance. I predicted it just before the draft. And what I feel like is all you got to do is look at the highlight reels on YouTube. Check out the highlight reels of these quarterbacks and see which guys open up with the play action rollouts. You know what I mean? Those are the guys they always go for. They're not really interested in the drop back throwers. They want to see the guys roll left and right. And when you watch Beathard's highlight tape, it was what a highlight tape. It was just a lot of that stuff at Iowa. And I guess the Shanahans feel like, this is a market of quarterbacks that only we're interested in. It's something particular. Okay. And it works for them, but that's how they think. They need to see that. Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. They can't. Yeah, I understand. They don't have the vision of being able to see it or not see what they're looking to do and take the guy kind of like me with my Mac Jones assessment this offseason, right? I didn't have that ability to look past how he was fit already what the 49ers did, so I understand that.
It's hard to get into someone else's scouting methods, and I'm not sure the Shanahans have a good scouting method for quarterbacks, but I swear they just look at the 3-minute highlight reel made by some guy on YouTube, and they're like, "Oh, this guy does play action." I'm sorry, it just seems that way. It just does.
Yeah, look what this guy's doing. Now let me see his film. Let me see how it looks.
Because I feel like what they're saying is that with the spread offenses in college, it's really hard to find a quarterback who's comfortable with the play action stuff. And I think they would say that it may not be teachable, that some of these quarterbacks just can't do it. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but they are the play action gurus of the NFL. And if that's how they feel, that's what they want. I get it to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me, and I think possibly for him, for Shanahan as well, on top of seeing him run all that stuff, is when you really dig into the fact that he's calling so much of the stuff at the line of scrimmage himself. He's the only quarterback that came out in this draft that I know of that wasn't getting to the line of scrimmage and looking to the sidelines for help.
I like that about
him. Audibles and things.
I like that about him because I think this offense could really benefit from a cerebral quarterback.
Yeah, it's gonna. You don't see that happening in the NFL. That's a college thing, and so that's a skill that he's not going to have to learn. He's already got it.
You saw with Chip Kelly though. That was inspiring stuff when he was here with the Niners. That was the worst season. I still say it was worse than the Tom Sula year. I couldn't stand that Chip Kelly year, man. So they mailed it in the whole time. They didn't compete. I mean,
yeah.
All right, couple more topics.
Ooh.
Niners Mount Rushmore. Who would you put on in your opinion?
All right. So this one I'm starting on. My Mount Rushmore would start with Bill Walsh. I don't think you can have a 49ers Mount Rushmore without him because he's the one that kind of curated and turned the 49ers into the team of the 80s and the team that started winning championships and pretty much what we all think of as when we think of 49ers, right? That all starts with Bill Walsh. That's kind of like George Washington being on the actual Mount Rushmore, right? You can't have the United States Mount Rushmore without the guy that was the first president.
He's like the Steve Jobs of the NFL. Like he invented Macintosh computer. Like pretty much updated the whole technology thing in the 80s. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going with Bill Walsh first, and then I'm going to go with Joe Montana. He's got to be on there because of the 5 Super Bowls. He was the whole catalyst behind it. Those two. I'm going to go with Jerry Rice. That seems like I think mine's going to be pretty easy. Jerry Rice. Obviously, probably the greatest, one of the greatest football players, not even just wide receivers, greatest football players of all time. And then my fourth one is going to be Ronnie Lott. I'm going to go with Ronnie Lott because he was the guy that was on the defensive side, and he was the guy that really set the tone for the defense all throughout those 3 Super Bowl runs from 81 to 89. That was all about Ronnie Lott. So those are my 4.
I can't argue with it. I'm going to have a couple things to say, but first, some alternatives for Lott. I think the 4th one is arguable. Although I was looking today, I've never really seen Ronnie Lott play. That was before my time. But I was doing a little research on like the early 80s Niners, trying to compare them to what the Niners got going on now. And I was looking at that 84 team. I didn't see that team play, but I was looking at their numbers. They went 15-1. Their offense ranked number 2 and their defense ranked number 1 in points allowed. Like, what a freaking team. And who was on that defense? Ronnie Lott. And I was looking like, I don't think they gave up more than 20 points in a game, like their final 11, 12. Like they just killed teams. Killed them. What was he doing in 1984? My God. What did he do?
He was blowing people up and he was the thing with Ronnie Lott was that he was able to be an all-pro top of the line cornerback who then later transitioned into a free safety and didn't take a step in, and he steps back. No. And
I have a story real quick.
Oh
no, go ahead. I'll finish. It's a traumatic story, but you.
I want to hear your story.
Okay, so when I was in 6th grade, I was in PE, and we were the coach was, teaching us football, and he was like, "Okay, so this position is cornerback. Who can name a famous cornerback?" And I raised my hand. Everyone said Dion and stuff, so I said Ronnie Lott, and the coach said, "No, you're wrong. He was a safety." I got so upset. I was like, "No, He started his career as a cornerback," and I went home, and my dad had saved all the media guides. You remember what media guides were? He had all the media. He still has them. So I came back the next day with the 1981 media guide, and I was like, see this right here? Cornerback. And the guy was hella begrudging about it. He was like, I mean, I guess. He was known as a safety. I was like, what do you mean he was known as – anyway, Mr. Peters, I haven't forgotten.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Here's the media guide.
Here's the freaking media guide, all right? Take it up with the 49ers. Okay, so Ronnie Lott, that's a good one. If we were going to go with someone else besides him, about Eddie D.
Yes. Yep. Definitely. That's another good one. Mm-hmm.
Like, we think of Jed York as a young guy who's still figuring it out. Jed's like 40, all right? Eddie D hired Bill Walsh when he was 34. Got it right. Like, you know who Jed York hired when he was 34? Jim Tom
Sula.
Yeah. So I think look, this guy, Eddie was pretty much handed the team by his father, right? Well, I don't know exactly. His dad was very rich and famous. I think his dad wanted to buy a team and they wouldn't let him in, but they let the son in. So he's kind of like Jed, but a little bit like Jed, kind of inherited a team at a young age, but he made some really good decisions at a young age. I'm going to call 34 young because I'm 33. So I'm going to say he made some really important decisions at a young age.
Yeah, 30. Oh, heck, at 34, that's heck of young to be an owner of an NFL team. Yeah, and everybody thought everybody realized that.
I would blow that if I were given the opportunity.
Well, I mean, he blew it when he started, right? I mean, his first coaching hire was awful, right? In '77 when he first took over the team, but and then he made the right call with, he made the right call in '79, and it took a couple of years. And it's what's funny about the Bartolo and Walsh relationship is that they were always battling back and forth throughout that whole time period. They're I think that's part of what led to Walsh. Part of what led to Walsh leaving earlier than you would think.
From what my dad would tell me, that there would be like these blow-ups where Eddie D would fire him and then have to like unfire him, or like Bill Walsh would quit and then Eddie D would have to get him to come. Like they would just have these. I don't know what it was. It's very emotional. I guess they were very high stakes. They had no losing seasons after 1983. It was very, very high stakes. So must have been tough.
Yeah, I've read that too. Those stories that you're talking about, as far as the firing and the slamming the TV and all those different kind of things.
Yeah. So very it's emotional. Not like he was more mature than Jed York. I'm not saying he was mature at all, but he really made the right choice at 34 years old. And you know what? He never moved the team to San Jose or Santa Clara. I'm just throwing that out there because look, Jed's legacy for a second was that he built the new stadium, not his uncle. That new stadium, my prediction is they'll be back in San Francisco in the next 20 years. They'll figure it out because that's every year it looks worse, given like what's going up in LA and Las Vegas and what's still in Seattle. I don't know.
Yeah, and we just had that conversation. You put the thing up on Twitter yesterday about the stadium, and I've seen a bunch of those the things that guy does, and they're really good. But the only thing that he misses on that, the one glaring miss that he puts on there, is the whole reason that it's so darn hot in that stadium is that stadium was designed for Candlestick Point. They didn't change the design of the stadium. They took the only difference was the north end zone didn't have the upper deck all the way around, so it was all exposed because they wanted the view of San Francisco from there. That was the original design.
And the shade was going to come from the Candlestick Hill mountain thing, right? Yeah,
right. Plus it's always it's always
cold over there
out there. Yeah, you weren't going to be out there burning
really
up
hot
in the sun.
In the South Bay. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's like at least 15 degrees hotter there at most times. And they used to whisper stuff like, "Oh man, these fans, what do they want? They're so coddled." Guy died of a heat stroke there in 2015, and now all of a sudden you don't see so many day games there in August and September. So what a disaster that they have to subtly ask the league allegedly every year, "Hey, can we start on the road? Maybe 2 weeks on the road." Come on, that sucks. Yeah. So yeah, they should. It was the thing that I don't know how we got on this topic. We're still doing Mount Rushmore stuff. Oakland's
We're talking about Jed.
Oakland's right there. I mean, if they wanted to build, they should probably go back to San Francisco, considering it is a San Francisco original franchise, and the Giants aren't, by the way. Niners are. But even Oakland's more convenient. San Jose? Man, no, they need to be back in San Francisco. I just don't know where they can do it because they repaved, they built up Candlestick, right? There's housing there. There's condos.
Yeah, there's condos all over there now, I think. Yeah.
They really should be where the Warriors are, but they blew that and let Lacob just swim right in.
No, they should have. It all should have worked out, and they should be in San Francisco. You're 100% correct on that one. That they are the San Francisco 49ers, and yeah, I missed the drive to San Francisco.
Philadelphia or Kansas City or New York or anything like that. They were originally started in San Francisco, and I'm from Oakland. I was never a Raiders fan. They were in LA when I was a kid, but they were Oakland's original franchise, and they've left twice. It's disgusting. Terrible. I feel like. All right,
that's good. Well, we're still on Mount. Did you get your Mount Rushmore?
Oh, I know. I would say the same thing. I can't disagree. I think the Niners Mount Rushmore is clearly defined. The only argument is that fourth guy. I think it should be Ronnie Lott. But if it weren't Ronnie Lott, you could make the argument of Eddie D because he's the one who hired Bill Walsh. And then other guys who would be in the conversation are Steve Young, Dwight Clark, because he's iconic. But no, it's Ronnie Lott. It's Ronnie Lott.
Yeah. Yeah, I go over. The one that you had put up there had Steve Young, and the reason it's not Steve Young is he only won one Super Bowl, and he wasn't a starter very long with the 49ers. It was a short run, and they only went to the one Super Bowl. So
that's a good call. Yeah, it shouldn't be Young. He would be in the next tier if there's a junior Mount Rushmore. He's junior. Okay,
he's the fifth head if we get the fifth head on there.
Okay, I talked about this with my dad a little bit earlier, but there's a list, and this came from CBS. CBS Sports ranked the NFL head coaches, and here's their top 10 in order, okay? Number 1, Andy Reid. Number 2, Bill Belichick. Number 3, John Harbaugh. Number 4, Sean Payton. Number 5, Sean McDermott. Number 6, Sean McVay. If your name is Sean, you have a leg up in this list. Number 7, Pete Carroll. Number 8, Bruce Arians. Number 9, Matt LaFleur. Oh, my God. Number 10, Mike Tomlin. Okay, so they're saying Kyle Shanahan, not a top 10 head coach. Very interesting. I feel like people were calling him a top 10 head coach the last few years. And are people getting skeptical with Kyle all of a sudden? Anyway, that's a side topic. Do you think he's a top 10 head coach?
No, I think this list is really good. The only one that I would look at is maybe Matt LaFleur at number 9, but it makes sense to have Matt LaFleur at number 9 over. Wins. Yeah, because he's been to the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. True. Kyle Shanahan hasn't had back-to-back winning seasons for whatever reason. He hasn't done it, so that's why he's off the list. Because all these guys that are on here are guys that are winning on a regular basis. You can look and you can say Sean McVay, and you can give whatever reason you want about McVay. Heck, Tomlin, back in 2 years ago when they didn't have their quarterback, they didn't fold and fall apart. They were 8-8. They were fighting for the playoffs in the last week of the season
with Duck Hodges.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of Super Bowl wins under his belt, and I don't see anybody on this list that I would take, and I can make a really strong argument to put Kyle Shanahan in above them.
It was interesting to see the respect that Sean McDermott has nationwide. I don't argue with it. Look what he's done. Has it been 4 years or 3 years over? He's done a terrific job at Buffalo. Yeah,
no, he's turned that whole thing around. I think he's been there for 4 years because I think they went to the playoffs 1 year before Josh Allen got there with
Tyrod,
quarterback that's out. Yeah, that's out in Houston now. So, no, I think that he's definitely he should be on this list. I understand the folks that really like Kyle Shanahan and would put him in this list, and it's all based off of the whole reason you put Kyle Shanahan on this list is based off of stats and the fact that he hasn't had his quarterback throughout the whole thing. But the only reason that the quarterback issue doesn't hold water for me is that you go back to Tomlin. Tomlin was right there 2 years ago without Ben Roethlisberger. They didn't fold. They were still an 800 team.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
They lost Ben Roethlisberger. And I don't think he's ever had a losing season, Mike Tomlin. Ever. I could be wrong about that. I don't think he's ever had one.
I don't think so either. I think they've always been right in the
I feel like with Kyle, the people who really like him are people who are a little bit more enamored with aesthetics than results. The kind of people who feel like, well, results, a lot goes into there. There's luck. All I know with Kyle is, like the process is legit. And when he doesn't get the results he wants, it's never his fault because I checked his work and he did it right. It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe he's actually judged by his results. It's a results business. He's a head coach. If he were coordinating, he could do this stuff.
Yeah, the 100%. That's kind of been my argument against Kyle Shanahan since they hired him. was the lack of results, even as an offensive coordinator. And you've seen what he did as a coordinator carry over into his results as a head coach. So I'm with you on that one.
He has two results that'll always keep him employed. The highlights look good, Jack. You know, like there'll be a couple big throws, a couple big runs every game, as opposed to, you know, Jim Tom Sula's team, Chip Kelly's team. Like those teams were boring. So it looks good, and he will produce fantasy football stars. So he'll always have people happy with him. You know, he'll get the yards, and yards are points in fantasy football. So he'll always – people like him. But the actual results that matter in the NFL, I mean, I'm not saying he can't get them. It's just – let's remember, Bill Walsh had 3 losing seasons his first 4 too as well. He just never had a losing season ever again. So that's the expectation, Kyle. Never have another losing season ever again. Come on. I mean, it's not that much to ask. Mike Tomlin does it. This is year 5. You built the whole thing. You got your quarterback. Never have another losing season.
Yeah, I love the fact that you basically called him a great head coach for a fantasy football team, because that's something that I've said about him for years. I mean, I love the fact, if you're a fantasy football coach, you love the fact that his teams put up yards upon yards year over year, but his teams don't score points very often.
I mean, so Deebo Samuel was a great fantasy football player. George Kittle's a great fantasy football player. You know, you get a little upset with the running back committee. That's never anyone's friend. But, I mean, Ayuk, Deebo, and Kittle are going to win people a lot of money in fantasy football.
Yes.
So, yeah. And so will Trey Lance.
Yeah, he will. He sure will.
Absolutely. Yeah, my voice went up an octave on that. That's how you know I was serious. Zia said only 2 quarterbacks have ever lost their first Super Bowl and then won after. Bob Greasy and John Elway. Start Trey. Yeah. Almost same odds of winning. Hey, Jack said that earlier. You're right. Good call. Thanks for the donation.
Yeah, no, it's 100% accurate. You just go ahead and throw him out there, because you know that I don't think he's going to fold. I think that Shanahan has the ability to put him in positions to where he's going to be able to succeed. They have the players around him to run this, you know, easy screen game, play action game, and make really easy throws. Look at what Garoppolo does. I mean, shoot, it's not hard. I mean, it's hard, but yeah, it's not something that Trey Lance. Right, exactly. It's not something that Trey Lance shouldn't be able to handle, and I think that's part of why you're seeing him climb up the ladder so quickly with the players.
Kyle's always coaching Super Bowl losers, man. He had Rex Grossman, Donovan McNabb, Jimmy, Matt Ryan. He's got to get a winner, man. And the thing about Trey Lance, people forget, I don't think he ever lost a game in college. I don't think he's lost a game in like 4 years. So that's good. At least he's proven that he has what it takes to be a winner at the levels he's played. And I always like that. That's a good thing. So, see.
Yeah. It's always a good thing when you got a quarterback that wins.
Yeah, it's generally what you want. Generally. Jack, thanks a lot for helping me arrive at that very deep thought at the end of this show. I really appreciate it. This was a good show.
Yeah, thank you. It's fun. It was a good time.
Hey, every day between June 15th and July 25th that we can make it through with the show, I feel blessed, because it's slim pickings out here these days, man. This is the dead period of the year. And this is what separates the true bloggers from the Johnny-come-latelys. We've been doing this a long time. We know how to navigate a dead period, and we just did it. So take notes, kids. That's how it's done.
Yeah, take notes, and and then you start watching, you start doing film breakdowns. Next thing you know, you're singing to yourself, and it all just kind of works out.
That always adds a little certain je ne sais quoi to the experience.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Zach. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm done streaming for the day. I'll see you tomorrow.